this is what it's come to. These bull nets are a little bit more than I bargained for. I thought they were just giving me a little welcoming, but they're out in full force. So what I'll have to do is basically dress up like this and do all the work I have to do outside, because there's a lot of cutting I have to do, a lot of trees that need to be cut all around me. So that's what I'm going to have to do while I look this way. And there are trees that are close to the house. Actually, they're a little far away, but they're so tall, if the wind or anything were to blow them over, then they would actually be falling onto the house. Now, this is not something I've ever looked forward to doing, because I'm not a lumberjack, and I'm always thinking about the fiasco. And this tree here, right behind me here, that tree is right next to the house. It's leaning towards the back, but if you could see up top, it's pretty heavy up top. So that's going to have to be one of the main trees that I cut. But in order to cut that tree, I got to cut trees behind me and behind that. So let me actually turn the camera around. So in order to cut this tree, I have to cut that tree, trees back here, and trees all the way back here, including this tree. I have to remove this old hunting stand here and more trees back here, because these trees that I'm felling are pretty tall. So that's the top of the house, and those trees go way, way up, all over the place. So getting them away from the house will allow actually more sun to come in. So getting the trees away from the house will let more sun come in to charge my solar panels, so that I'll have power at night and I won't have to use the generator. So that's going to be a major ordeal. So as I deal with these bugs that are climbing all over the screen here of my face mask, I'm going to have to make sure I get all that done. Not the best way to work, but it is what it is. So stay tuned as I deal with all these big trees. So this is first on the agenda because I have a storage building I have to set up. And the storage building I want to set up is right in here, so that these trees must go. Although they are big trees, I'm going to have to face the fear and just knock them out. Hopefully it's that easy, but we'll see. So stay tuned, and that's what we're going to be dealing with here shortly, because something's got to happen. Even though these bugs are very, very bothersome, but I guess things could be worse. Maybe if I didn't have so many trees, they wouldn't be so bad, but whatever. We have to get it done anyway, so stay tuned, and hey, we're going to get busy here. First things first, I must get rid of this old hunting stand that has been here for at least 20 plus years. I've seen it ever since I've been coming to this property and walking through the property. What's on the sides, or what's left of what was on the sides, I don't know what it is, but it's pretty thick and it has not rotted away. As a matter of fact, if you guys were watching when I put in my septic system, I used a piece of the front and the side in order to cover the leach line, because when you put the leach line in, you want to put something over it so that the dirt wouldn't go in and clog up the holes where the fluid will come out and leach out into the earth. So I use that, and it's been great. So there's a couple of pieces left, so I'm going to actually use that for something else also, since it seems to not rot away. So now this is the very first tree. Not a big tree, but it is still pretty tall, and if you are able to see the distance that it is from the house, it's pretty tall. So what I want to do is make sure that it doesn't fall the wrong way and hit the house. So I'm actually putting a chain on it, and then that's going to be connected to a come along, and that will be to another strap, so that as I start cutting, I will put some pressure on it, and that will cause it to fall away from the house in the direction that I'm cutting it. So as I go up this ladder and cut off some of the small branches so that I can get it up a little bit higher, I'll put a little tension on it so that it falls away from the house after I change this blade, because I've been cutting before I got here the last couple times, so it's about time to change the blade. So now that that's done, I can go ahead and cut this thing down. Each time I cut a tree down, I try and get as close to the surface of the ground as I can so that I'm not bothered too much by stumps, because what I do is I just leave them in the ground and let them rot away, and some years later I can come back and I can use the axe and get rid of them. So another tree gone. So now I can cut this guy down, and all these trees are pretty small and they're cutting really nicely and they're away from the house, so I'm not too worried. So I could go ahead and just cut them and be done with it, so that I can get to the trees that are really scaring me or will be scaring me as I try and cut them. So stay tuned, because this is going to get pretty good as we go. Now this tree that I'm cutting here right now, that tree is still a good distance away, so I'm not too worried about that one. So this one comes down pretty easily, and I cut it and get it out of the way. So too will this other one, the bigger one that this smaller tree was connected to. So these trees, I'm not cutting that close to the ground, because I'm just really not going to worry about the stumps too much, because I need to get these trees down and out of here. And on this tree, I bucket just a little bit just to, cut it up. And what will happen later is I'll load this lumber up, or load this wood up, and take it to my brother's house so that it can be split further to be burned in his fireplace. Just so that you guys know, these trees that I'm cutting are called water oaks. And the thing I found out about these water oaks, just like the tree I'm about to cut right now, is that a lot of times they will rot from the inside, so they'll look like they're okay. Now this tree, it looks like it's pretty much dying or have died already, but a few of the other trees that I've cut, when I cut them down, I can look inside them and see that it's rotting from the inside. And I'm actually really glad that I'm cutting these trees, because if I don't and they look good from the outside, during a big storm, the wind could possibly blow them over and they could hit the house. So I am glad that I'm cutting those out right now, because that's something I don't want to happen either. Okay, now comes the tree that caused a lot of trouble. Cutting this tree is sort of leaning away from the house, and it's a little farther away from the house than the tree that I really want to cut. But in order to cut the other tree, I have to cut this tree down. So as I'm cutting this tree, I didn't bother tying it to anything because I thought it was going to fall the way I cut the little wedge out of it. And as you can see, I'm cutting the wedge now, and it's going to come out the way I want it to fall, which is the way that I'm supposed to be cutting it, just like here. But as I continue to cut, it just does not act the way it's supposed to. In hindsight, earlier on in this video, I pointed the camera up to the top of this tree, and I saw the fact that the branches were leaning towards the house, and I didn't take that into consideration when I was actually cutting the tree, because if I had, I would have put a chain on it and pulled it away from the tree, away from the house, so that it would not fall towards the house. But after I cut it and it started to fall, the weight from the branches all the way up made it go that way towards the house, and as a result, I killed 2 ladders, and I damaged the septic system a little bit, and the gutters, I dented those because one of the branches hit that, as you can see, and this is what we have. So I was praying as it was going down that it didn't hit the house. Fortunately, it did not, but that was a close call. That's the closest call I've had with such a large tree, because you can see from the diameter of this tree is pretty much as big as I am around, if not bigger. So I'm happy that it did not happen. So there'll be a little bit further explanation maybe of this tragedy, or what could have been a tragedy, as we go on to the next video. So I'll see you guys then.